All right.
Okay.
So my only request is not to ask about the Bowie State situation. That is the only. That's the only interview question. Is that it might not be helpful for the message. You know what I'm saying?
If that's the only skeleton you have in your closet, then you're doing all right. I'm gonna nominate you for sainthood.
No, no. Then there was that situation in the kitchen with your girl, with the
Yeah,
deaconess.
well, that was a moment.
Two. There's two.
Okay. So noted. I will not raise them. All right. Well, welcome to the People of the Way podcast, where we talk to interesting people who follow Jesus Christ about how it impacts their daily lives. I'm your host, Reverend Ngozai T. Robinson. I'm an ordained Baptist minister and founder of the People of the Way Ministries, an online community of believers who are in love with God or even just in like with God. I'm blessed to be with you. And I have with us today Elena Anderson DeLay, also known as my BFF, best friend forever. I first met her many, many moons ago. We won't say how many because we're ladies of getting to be of a certain age. I am. I don't know. Maybe she's approaching. It's a secret. And we met in church when we were basically handed the Young Disciples for Christ ministry because the other participants had aged out. And over the course of trying to sustain and build up and guide that ministry, we developed a fast and sure and true friendship. And I am happy to have her here today. I've been wanting to talk with her about some specific issues that I know of, not just because of our friendship, but because we did share the same church for a nice long period of time, and just see how God has been active in her life and what she has developed in her discipleship through the challenges of working in a church. So, Elena, please feel free to introduce yourself, share anything you think the audience might want to know. And my first question is, what is your relationship with God? And as we were talking earlier, yes, today at this moment in time, because it does indeed change given the hour and the tides of the moon. Take it away, Elena.
Thank you for having me in Goes Eye, and I am indeed so proud to be your BFF and to just experience so much of my Christian walk alongside you, and to see your ministry just flourish and blossom. I am currently leading a ministry particularly related to outreach and community engagement. Much of it addresses homelessness within downtown DC, specifically in one specific neighborhood. So it's my goal to help impact just a change for the better, one community at a time. And you know, I can't change all of Washington D.C., the East Coast of the U.S., but you can make a difference where you
Yes.
can. Where you can. And my relationship right now, I feel that it's better. I feel that I have clarity in my communication, my connection with Christ, but it took some work getting here. But it's one of those things, like with family, like with friends, you can fall out of touch with one another. When you reconnect, it's like no time has passed. And I feel that there were moments in my journey where I fell out of touch with Christ, and you miss it, and you also notice it, and you notice the disconnect and the misalignment in your life, and you have to work to get it. You have to dig up time and ways to reconnect, and that's something that I would say in the last 2 years I've really acknowledged and done the work towards that. So I'm not where I should be, but I'm better than I used to be.
Amen. That's a wonderful word. I'm just so curious. what does having a disconnect in the relationship feel like, as far as what's the difference that you can tell in your daily living
The
for you?
biggest, for me, the biggest difference was just you feel like, let's say when you're first learning to ride a bike and those training wheels are off. When you're in alignment with Christ, you always have the training wheels or the knee pads or just that layer of protection and
Mm,
guard of you no matter what you do, whether you go fast or slow, sideways or straight, you knew that you were upright and where you needed to go. So I would say there were some physical manifestations like insomnia. There was depression. There's also just lack of like brain fog. And you can say that, oh, it's just, you're just, managing your startup or there's a pandemic. But it was a little bit more. It was like there was that intuition seemed muted and I just didn't have clarity on what I was meant to do, what I should seek out doing or my role. And it didn't feel like anyone else around me, even though they were sympathetic, that they were really telling me something to get me back on track. So it's that missing something. You can't put your finger on it,
mm,
but you know that oftentimes when you have that gut feeling, we have those vivid dreams that inspire you to just get up and paint something or get up and call someone. I knew that I hadn't had a signal in a while. I hadn't had those inspirational moments. Even during worship experiences, I would see just, others being influenced around me, but I'm like, oh, okay, did I miss something?
yeah,
And then you have FOMO. You're like, oh, am I missing out on this Holy Spirit? Hey, why did I get passed over? So there were
wow.
several moments that I felt either like I was missing out on what others were experiencing, and that it's like I didn't have any guardrails in my life to feel protected, and I just didn't have a connection. Usually, you would say a prayer and feel better, but going through the traditional practices and rituals that I was trained as a child, it just didn't work anymore. Plugging into Sunday worship just didn't work. So I needed a major reset.
So, what was the reset? How did you get out of that state?
I stopped. I realized I was doing church, I was doing ministry by rote memory, by habit, and not by purpose. And when you do it, it just takes a moment to stop, to catch your breath. If you feel like you're doing something strenuous and you just take that quick pause to catch your breath, all of a sudden your endurance increases. So it was a moment where I just felt that I was always being frustrated. And even it's gotten better now, but I used to have moments due to previous church hurt that I would just get emotional driving en route to church. And I could not, if I crossed the threshold of my church, I would cry or feel down or
Wow.
feel, it was a very physical impact. I would feel nauseous or like you ate something bad, but all I had was my tea for that day. Fine. Anytime I would go downtown, anywhere else, I would be fine. But I just felt a major heaviness when I went into the church building. There were certain people, and when I was there, I was trying to avoid and navigate people, and all that it was so distracting. And I just really needed to take note and really pause. I'm like, why do I have to go every day if it's impacting my mental well being? do I have to go every day? Are there other ways to plug in? And so I really looked into reading and just looking at Eastern cultural ways of plugging into the voice of God. And that was looking at mindfulness even more, meditation, even if I could, I would take that backpacking trip up a mountain just to be by myself. I felt that other things had to be silenced and my routine had to be broken in order for me to just be open to receive a new message.
Wow. I think a lot of people live in that rut, in that space where there's that disconnect. How did you realize it? Because sometimes it can come on so stealthily that you know something's wrong, but you don't know what it is. Was there a moment when you're like, oh, I'm having a God disconnect?
Yeah, I was going through a period of a lot of loss. There was loss of a partner, loss of a job, loss of loss of a father, loss of other positions, and just a lot of things seemed as if they were stripped away. Logically, I knew that all that loss um, was not, just coincidental. That it was for a reason, but I just didn't know what the reason was. I didn't know how to prepare myself for any additional loss, and I was able to have that aha moment where I realized, okay, how do I get the message? Like, hello, hello, there was the reach out, and then your reaching out just felt, it didn't feel authentic. So I'm like, all right, how can I just be a little bit more disciplined in how I reach out? I don't want to be that type of follower where I just reach out to the Lord whenever I need something or want something. I remember a sermon that you did where we can't treat Christ like Santa, and always ask for give me please or I like, but to have a, a disciplined routine about constantly having a conversation. And I just worked to rebuild a conversation. Yeah, that was easier to say than to do. And I realized that the conversation, I didn't know how to have a conversation. Like, how do you
Hmm.
crack it open? Like, hey, haven't kneeled in a minute. How are you? I got no job. What you doing? Kind of thing. Like, how do you be?
That is real. That is so real.
And I remember elders and seniors in the church saying, like, the Lord understands your moans. And you know what? I just moaned. I moaned, and it eventually became a song. And eventually, it was a while before I actually had words. So a moan became a song became a picture became a painting. Sometimes it was a sketch. Sometimes it was just sitting and crying,
Mm,
but it was about the stillness. It was about being still, being humble, to surrender, just surrender. And when you get stuck in a routine, it's like this autopilot where you feel like you're in control. And when you surrender, you acknowledge that you have absolutely no control, you absolutely know nothing, and that you can't do anything about it. So you sit and just wait on further instruction.
wow. That I feel like you're giving us a master class on how to reconnect. So I am really enjoying this. W- What is church hurt to you? How would you define that?
I define church hurt when it happens. It's a major distraction. Because it's one thing when someone steps on your toe walking down the street, but if it happens to within the church, then it feels different. It hurts. And when you really feel that you're part of a body of Christ, that you are truly brothers and sisters, it's like having a family member step on your toe and do that hurt. And in moments where you deal as a woman, as a person of color, you deal with a lot of hostility and even microaggressions in the world. You look to church as a refuge, and at the very least, you look to church as a way to refuel, rebuild, and be vulnerable about the fact that you need that. So if you're being attacked in the church, is when, I'm already coming like this. You open up when you're in church, and then that it just gets to your heart deeper. And it's I don't have like a standard textbook definition, but it's church hurt is a hurt that takes longer to heal. It's a hurt that comes from fellow members in your place of worship that you feel connected to spiritually, even closer than family. And so when it happens, it's something that really lasts to the point where you feel that only reconnecting with Christ will understand. And even, there are folks that say hurt people hurt. But yeah, even you put on a filter when you're arguing with a family member, or you hold back. And there were just moments where some folks just didn't hold back. And it just, in the end, I felt like, what is all this for? If we're in a country where we can worship freely, if we are supporting the kingdom, we should all be on one accord. So it opens the door for not just the pain, but it makes you doubt yourself. Am I doing the right thing? Um, did I get the right instructions? And even when you try to reconcile, oftentimes there's just a ricochet right back at you where you're blamed for
Mm.
like being too sensitive. And then, who's going to mediate that? Usually the folks that would mediate it are the folks that are hurting. And so when it's not recognized or acknowledged, I don't think it's acknowledged in the church enough that just like, we have bereavement support or bereavement ministries, we should have a ministry of healing that address church hurt. That when there's, workplaces do it, secular workplaces do it. When you have a grievance, go to HR, go to some counsel or mediation. Here's a recourse. And if we just acknowledge that there's healing amongst brothers and sisters within a family, then I think, there's a recourse in getting through it. But for me, it's something that is, when I hear stories of those who used to be part of a church or did something that there's some hurt, they may not label it as hurt. So many followers just get discouraged because of church hurt. And it's something that happens at various stages. As adults, it's even more harming as children. Some of the worst things I've been called in the church. So logically, it tells us, well, shoot, if working inside the church is like this, I might as well be in the world. Because at least, at least I know how to deal with being called certain names. I just can't deal with it, or don't know how to do it respectfully and lovingly, or how to turn the other cheek when it happens within the church home.
Wow. Wow. Did that impact your relationship with God? Like, were you able to separate out your relationship with God from your relationship with the church? How did that play out?
I had to. So here's the thing. Gosh, I had a lot of Jesus in my life. So I've grown up Baptist in a Baptist church. I went through all types of Christian education in schools privately, with the majority of my formal education being in Catholic school. I even went to a Methodist school at one time and other denomination. I even went to a a Jesuit college. So there was a whole lot of doctrines in Jesus. So I knew how to do church. In fact, I knew how to do all kinds of churches everywhere. So it was that. And so maybe I think I was a little bit of idealistic in how church really operates, especially when you start to get involved with the business side or the operational side of church. And um, it was never really taught that when you deal with the business and operational side of church, that too is still a ministry, and you still have to feed your and spirituality and still stay connected, even when you're handling the business side, which oftentimes is
Mm,
outward facing, or dealing with secular agencies and other entities. It's still a ministry. I had the part where you perform it with excellence, but I did not have that foundation and understanding, like, it's still a ministry. I felt that it was something to support ministry, but not that in and of itself was ministry. So even with connecting it with God, it went through such, when you go through that period of such a period of different losses, you start to question everything.
yeah.
And because I was not getting the healing that I need from institutionalized spirituality, I realized, I'm like, I got to go somewhere, which is why I looked outside of the traditional Western church for that. And um, I really, I became a seeker. And that's why those moments of being still was helpful. Like, you couldn't call a path. I didn't feel that, of all the pastors and preachers that I know,
Mm-hmm.
nobody could help. I know other laymen and other leaders and people who were of the faith for most of their lives. No one had a solution. In fact, I felt judged, and judged like, oh, your faith is a little weak right now. I'm like, well, the faith, I think, got me here. And it felt like I was just being distracted from what it was, which was just trying to get to know Christ a little bit better. Because when you deal with institutions, especially faith-based institutions, it's all about bureaucracy. It's about procedures, protocols, tradition, and I just felt choked and constrained. It was like wearing like a really, really tight dress that you can't sit down in,
Oh,
and like you
right.
want to be there, but you just can't breathe. You just can't breathe, and I felt that so much was happening in the world, and this was pre-pandemic. So much was happening, so much suffering, and we would be in business meetings for hours and nothing would happen. And so there was this unrest where not just I felt that it was a failure of being able to get the healing that I need, but there was this restlessness that if I don't do something right now, I will become what I dislike the most.
Mm.
So I had to be still. I had to disrupt my routine and just seek that reset. And I'm like, I just didn't care. I needed a path. I mean, I just needed a path. And maybe my whole value system and how I was brought up in religious education and in church, what if, because I know there's too many people who have a spiritual connection, they use different references, different titles, but they are people who are trying to give back and be good. And I'm like, I'm trying to be back, give back, be good, um, be better. And if others have found another path, I'm willing to try it. It's when you get desperate. You know, you
Mm.
think you have certain meal preferences, but when you're starving, you'll eat anything. You eat, locusts and cicadas. So if you're hungry enough,
Let's not talk about cicadas. Woo!
no, no, but if you're hungry enough, you will seek you will seek that fulfillment that you're looking for. And so I realized I was getting really, really hungry, and that's why. And I just did not like all these structures in front of me. My end game was that when it's my last day, can I really say that I've done my best to reconnect with Christ? So if it is going through fasting, if it is taking that backpack trip up the Himalayas, whatever you got to do, figure it out. And you got to be still to see what else you had to do. So I just wanted to wait on my instructions. It's almost as if um, I didn't want to just follow my own logic
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
knowledge because I know it's very finite and limited. But I felt that um, this is when emotions really help guide you. I knew that there was just so much unrest and so much needed to be done. That's why the emotions kind of poured out at that time because I knew it was almost detoxifying myself.
So, what does your faith practice look like now as far as how you connect to God and replenish yourself? Because it sounds like you tried some different things, you embrace different methods. How has it changed?
It changed in that I feel lighter in general. So when I go back to that same building, I still feel a little heaviness. I know that it's still there, but it sparked my creativity in that the church is not the building. It's in your heart. How are you protecting your heart and sharing it with others? And so, again, being still, which I now make sure that I spend some time being still every single day, whether it is when you wake up, just not moving. You may have to stare at the ceiling a little bit longer. You may have to schedule it. Like I actually got to a point where I have scheduled reminders to say, time for prayer or time
Mm.
to turn the lights off, lock the door, get ready for bed. I may not always do it, but there is an external reminder that just allows me to stay centered and be mindful of it. And even with I now do yoga. At first, I'd signed up for two different types because there's so many different styles or methods. I didn't know which one would work best for me. But being able to do that allowed me to have that scheduled time where I was absolutely still. I was also surrendering because I was kind of uncomfortable doing it, but not so intimidated since it was over Zoom. But there was actually some benefits to being able to channel my thoughts. And when I started the physical practice of yoga, then I was able to start sleeping. And I suffered for a while with insomnia. I just couldn't, my mind kept running, what to do, where to do it, why did I need to do it. And just intentionally pausing allowed me to pause long enough to get some actual rest, which allowed that physical part of the reset. So it's an ongoing, it's ongoing. I don't know what perfect is. I don't know what the goal is. I just know that it needs to be a priority. And when I make it a priority, I am more balanced, and um, I have a different mindset when it comes to sharing the word of the Lord and really being part of ministry that can do it. So with supporting individuals experiencing homelessness, that just came up. That was a Zoom call linked to the community where someone, I think it was a neighbor, said, we've noticed a lot of an increase of individuals sleeping on the streets. And there was someone from the police department say, well, the shelters are closed and the restaurants are closed. So not only are they sleeping on the streets, but they have to relieve themselves wherever they can. And I'm like, that doesn't. There's too many smart people in this area for that to be a concern. I know it's a pandemic and everyone is sheltering in place, trying to be protective of themselves and others. But at what can we do to support the most vulnerable? And that's, being able to think that way and to see the need. Because sometimes I would just float through a day, and someone would say, "Girl, I was calling your name for 5 minutes. You didn't hear me? You were in a daze." I'm like, "Yep." So I felt that I was no longer numb to life, that
Mm.
my ears started to open up to the needs around me in a way where I felt compelled to do something or to be creative in finding a solution and finding ways to help.
That is wonderful. What does your relationship with the church, as in the building, your particular branch of Zion, how's that going now?
It's better. I limit my time intentionally. My poor pastor just like, all right, I know, can you at least come like once a month? Like, okay, baby steps. Baby steps. I know I'm going to have to get into the building, and it, like I said, it's better. What works best is if um, things are urgent and I don't have time to think about my path back into the building. I've worked with my therapist about it, just trying to, like, I don't know what with this building thing. It hasn't always been a thing. Why is it a thing? And actually, the individuals that caused the hurt aren't in the building anymore. But it's something about that zone, that region, that does it. So also, in praying and trying to get aligned, I've also prayed that, oh, is it a sign, Lord, that I just don't need to be a member? I'm like, I'm waiting. And yeah, so we don't always get the answer, or our answer may be wait. And I haven't received the answer of, all right, it's time to move. It's time to withdraw from the membership. But one thing that it has allowed me to do is, like, what is church? It made me redefine and rethink about it. That church can
Mm.
be done outside of that building, ministry can be done outside the building. And ironically, due to the pandemic, it shifted everyone else's mindset as well. that, and I don't mean like just virtual stuff. I was just really done with the formality of everything. Like, why can't I figure out how to help after hearing a need? Why can't we be able to pivot when things around us change? And as people of God, we should be agents of positive change around us. So I was it that heaviness that I still feel a little bit is not as paralyzing. That heaviness is a reminder that I always need to be prepared for the pivot, be prepared to shift my routine and look outward for how others can be served and how just the message of the Lord can be given to those who really seek it. And I realize I'm not the only one who struggles entering a place of worship. There's so many folks who feel that, they would be unwelcome or that they would not be well received or well understood. Maybe they're not dressed enough or just not ready. There's an intimidation even about entering a place of worship. So that connects me with them. And I'm okay being uncomfortable on the inside, because the more uncomfortable I am on the inside makes me more comfortable being on the outside. And sometimes we gotta be on the outside so that we can welcome more people into the inside.
That is deep. You really put a bow on that. That's beautiful. So, if you could go back in time, you're still you, but what piece of advice would you give to your earlier self that maybe your earlier self could actually hear and receive?
Yeah, girl, calm down is what I would say. Just calm down. Take a break. It ain't worth it. Good. I was so that ministry that we first worked on together, for some reason, it just felt like it was dumped on us. We didn't get an orientation or anything, but we were told it's your responsibility to keep this ministry alive. And I'm like, oh, what's the name again? It was just we
Oh,
got a
yes.
binder. And so I'll just speak for myself. I just felt like a hamster in a hamster wheel. I'm like, okay, there were 5 events in the previous year. Let's try to do those same 5 events. Oh, what? No budget? Okay, we'll do it. We'll pay for it, and maybe we'll get reimbursed, and maybe things will
Oh,
go well.
you're giving me trauma. Ooh.
Sorry to refresh the trauma, but it was, I didn't know how to say no then. It took
Mm,
me, it was like at least a decade later before I realized that you can say no in the church. You can say, like, I want to just enjoy being a new member and maybe learning other ministries.
yeah, yeah,
But it did, no regrets, because that moment taught me how I just don't like bureaucracy when it comes to ministry. That, you write a budget, you don't know if it's approved, you do the event, and then even though you are under budget, you may not get reimbursed. And yeah, but you don't make that much money, and you're using your own credit card. It was just a whole bunch. And then folks were still angry, with some of the creative things we tried to do, whether it was
yes.
the Bible study, oh goodness, jazz, and there's a lot of things that we did that there is, I guess, nostalgia about it. Like, oh, you remember when you and the Goes I used to do it? I'm like, yep, I sure remember. Okay, that doesn't mean I'm the one. And I'm like, who? whatever is needed, the Lord will send them. But I think we both needed that for our individual journeys in order to be prepared for the pitfalls ahead and to really be able to carry and lead ministry. Like it's hard work outside of the inspiration.
I was just talking to David today, and I was saying, oh, I wrote my sermon, so I'm ready for tonight. And he said, it's almost as if God never stops. And I was like,
Mm-mm.
yeah, I mean, God, you're not going to take a 5-minute break or nothing? Make me feel like I'm slouching. But the ministry does continue and it goes on, and we need to figure out healthy ways to engage with it because the needs are not going to stop. But one of those needs is us taking care of ourselves and sustaining ourselves.
Hmm.
I look at how Jesus took breaks and even got away from, his closest people sometimes and just went off in the desert as a reminder to me that it is okay to take a pause. But the church will tell you it's not okay. You just got to dig in deeper and find some extra faith.
Yeah, yeah, as if you're not human. So when the Lord took a break, the Lord who's superhuman, if he had to take a break, why can't we take a break?
Exactly. That's all I'm saying.
And he took a nap. He took a nap on that boat. so,
And got
so
mad at
look,
him. I got mad at them for waking him
right?
up. It's like I was resting. What are you all about?
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, took a nap. He had to eat and have fun too. So that's another thing I would tell my younger self is that you don't have to be one dimensional. That's not going to ensure your timber in heaven. It is really living a full life. And in the end, if you are just miserable and crying and feel depleted, if your cup is empty, that's not helping the kingdom at all because you don't
Hmm.
no longer have that joy. So that was my part of my realization is that when you know that a ministry is a good fit, it's because you have joy regardless of what happens. So it could be building something on a shoestring or two and really putting it together, but your joy just compels things to move. And oftentimes, another thing I learned is that your secular skills aren't always or rarely your spiritual gifts. So just
Mm.
discerning like your spiritual gifts versus like your secular skills. I thought my secular skills were if I'm good at this, then surely I think yeah, that's the talent God gifted me to do things for. So also I would for church leaders when they are trying to assign ministries or see who's better for this ministry, it can be sabotaging in a way to just look at their secular skills. It's like, oh, well, you teach, middle school, so you should be a Sunday school teacher. Why not? But what about their spiritual gift of song or their spiritual gift of edifying someone? When will they have a moment to let that shine? So we have to take that time to learn what our spiritual gifts are because it's not always the gift that you start out with. Sometimes your gifts evolve and God gives you when there is a need. Like if you told me 3 years ago I would be so passionate about homeless outreach, I'm like, oh, that's nice. But I
Mm.
don't have, I hadn't, it's where I want to get better training. I want to do better. And it just bothers me when um, I'm like, okay, like something needs to happen. Um, it is, change for the better. And I don't like people try to quote that the poor will always be among you. I'm like, yeah, poor will always be among you. It didn't say the homeless. So we have to we have to take that pause and listen, because your assignment may change, and the assignment that you have this year may be different next year. Chances are you may be different 10 years from now, but the Lord knows He made you, so He knows what you can do. It may even surprise you when you try.
Mm-mm-mm. You're so inspirational. I'm loving it.
There was a minister I haven't seen her in a while, but her name is Reverend Lois Dejan. She was our spiritual leader back at Loyola in college. And she would always tell us, because she would ask us like something random, like bake a pie and drop it off at 2 o'clock on Friday. It's just random, like, Reverend Lois, I don't know how to make a pie. And then all of a sudden, the pie came together, but it would be for something that she was supporting. But we always had doubts as college students, and she would always retort, it is not your ability, it's your availability. So
Mm, I like
if
that.
you if you are just still enough and leave yourself open, God will give you what you need to do your assignment. You just lay things out in front of you, but
Yes, yes.
you have to just surrender. In that, again, you can't think like, oh, I went to school for this, but you just like, oh, I went to school for this, I don't have training in that. But if you're asked to do that, it will just come to you and you'll feel fine. It will be done with excellence. And you're sitting back like an out of body experience. Like, I don't know who did it, how I did it, but it got did. So it's one of those things where if you just open yourself to being available, it will happen. And to God be the glory in that.
Amen. So what do you think is next on your spiritual journey? What direction is God pointing you in?
I don't know. On this day, I am not sure, but I do know that I will try not to figure it out. And as long as you practice to continue to be still and do it. I would say, even, during some recent frustrating moments, like, they just don't affect me, as much. So that I am so grateful that God is lifting his baggage of church hurt from me. Because my prayer is not to become the thing that has hurt me. So I do believe that saying of hurt people hurt is true. So I don't want to be so hurt that I begin to hurt others the way that I've been hurt, or hurt others in some other way. I don't know what is next. I'm so surprised with what he's done so far. I want to stay out of it, and I'm just going to be still
I hear that.
and surrender. And who knows? He might send me backpacking in the Himalayas. I don't know.
You keep
He's
mentioning
got
that,
it.
so it might be on the list. I don't know.
He's got it. I am fine being in the passenger seat, laying back. I will be attentive and open and continue to be prayerful so that I'm strong enough to handle the assignment. And it's also, keep up your conditioning through maintaining that connection. That is your spiritual muscle. So I'm learning and growing as I wait on the next assignment.
That is wonderful. It has been a journey for me watching you go through your journey and with church hurt, and recently I've been just like, quit, leave, stop, go, and you've been holding on. You've been waiting for the Holy Spirit to instruct you on what to do, and that has just been so faithful that it has inspired me. And I was just like, well, it must be in the Lord's hand, because I've just about tried to drag her out the building and she's still there. So God must be doing something. And so it's so great to hear that you are coming around the other side of this mountain, and you've been blessed because of it, and will be able to be a leader and a source of support and comfort and consolation for others who are going through it. And I can't wait to see how you will continue to rise up, because I've seen your heart for the homeless just grow. Not that you didn't have one before, but it is right in the forefront now in a way that it wasn't before. So I really hear you when you're saying your assignment can change. And I'll be looking forward to
Mhm.
what's next.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I have a question. Um, you said when you were searching for that reconnect, nobody had the answer. Was there something that I could have done in the moment that would have been more helpful, just for my own learning?
In retrospect, no. No, it was meant, you were there as my best friend. So it wasn't meant for other people to have the answer.
Ah.
It was meant for me to be lost. I needed to be lost. I needed to wonder in order to find what I needed to find. So between you and family and other spiritual leaders, and it's not like you said anything wrong, but it's almost like, you know how like they dramatize things in movies where
Mm-hmm.
folks are walking through and they hear mumblings or um, you know, only what you do for God will last. Just keep holding on. You got this, but it wasn't working. It wasn't enough. But it wasn't negative. You weren't pulling me down. It was just like, thanks. I'm going to keep walking. And so that's why I knew to keep walking. It was like, you're running this long marathon, but and people alongside you are cheering you on, but you are the one who's running, and you are the one who has to finish the race.
Mm.
So I acknowledge you, and I acknowledge others for holding up that sign, encouraging me that it's going to be all right. You never said how it's going to be, but it's going to be all right. It wasn't that finish line that I needed. I just had to keep it. It kept me being able to move towards the finish line. So I would just say that as far as when you are speaking to someone who is hurt, oftentimes it's intimidating to know exactly what to say, but your presence means so much to that hurting person, even if, it's that pat on the back or um, just the presence, the thing that I see you, I want to do something, or I don't even know what to do. That still helps. It's not the miracle pill or anything to take it all the way, but when that person gets to the other side, it's always like, oh, that was that cheering supporter, making sure that I got through. Because, sometimes when you see someone else's pain, you're like, ooh, I don't know. I haven't gone through that, but I definitely empathize with what he or she is going through. So it is it is something helpful. So I absolutely appreciate it. I don't think you did anything wrong, and I don't think that wasn't your assignment. That wasn't your assignment to give me an answer.
You know, you're talking like a guru. I think you are definitely going to go up that mountain in the Himalayas. You're just dropping all of this knowledge and all of this wisdom. It was for you to be lost. And I think a
Hmm.
lot of people never come to that understanding, um, which which I really am so grateful that you've realized that, and it adds to your strength because you're able to see that God was always working with you. There was really no absence. It was difference.
Hmm. We all have our wilderness experience that we have to go through.
Ah, another vacation Bible school.
Yep, yep. We all have to go that journey, and
Wilderness experience.
for some, it's a lifetime.
Yes,
And I
yes.
honestly can't say if my wilderness experience is over. You know, they're short trips, they're long trips, they're lifelong trips, and so the whole time though, the Lord never left. Like during the day, He was still that pillar, and during the night, never left. 40 years is a long time to hold
Tell me
on.
about it. Ooh.
It's generations, so just never left him. Never lost track of him either. They forgot, but he didn't forget. So it was it was that thing where, um, yeah, could you imagine wandering in the desert? Nobody died of starvation either, or they may have aged out, but it's one of those things. You are sustained in the wilderness.
All right, preacher. Okay, calm
So
down.
so it is, it's that trust. Like I said, so my magic word today is surrender. Surrender. You're not supposed to know all the answers. You're not supposed to know what lies ahead for your journey. If you surrender, there's that trust that you have that you're going to be sustained during all of those setbacks, even
Amen.
when it doesn't fit the definition of secular life sustainability. Like you may be without a home, you may be without a job or without provisions, but somehow God provides. And so you have to surrender.
Amen. Well, I can't believe it's taken us this long to have an in-depth conversation about all of this, and it has been so enriching. Did I forget anything? Is there anything you want to add?
Nothing. Oh gosh, we could talk all day about this, but I know that watching you, because your fight with your double fight with cancer was something where it was, um, I don't know for you, but it was like we had parallel wilderness experiences. And so sometimes when you see a close friend go through something, you have regret that it's like, oh no, I'm the BFF. I should be there every day, but it was hard when, you're going through your journey. And
Mm,
sometimes it's not as parallel as you like it to be in our, future lifetime movie. It wasn't how I wanted it to be. And you can beat yourself up. Again, it's that cycle it creates a cycle of negative self talk and doubt. Like, in my mind, a BFF should do this when her friend like goes through trouble and is not feeling well. And it was hard. It was really, really hard. So I would say regret is one of those symptoms of not surrendering.
mm.
And we often play back scenes where we end up saying, woulda, coulda, shoulda, why didn't I, blah, 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 rather than what did I learn for the next one? Because I was said in one of our prayer sessions, we repeat, if we never learn the lesson, it will repeat itself. So instead of just focusing on what the woulda, coulda, shouldas, just focus on the lesson so that you can get to the other part of your journey. And the reason it happens is the reason that it needed to happen. So if we don't take that pause, we will create cycles where it only extends our journey.
Amen.
Amen. So you inspire me.
And you inspire me.
And thank you so much for having me.
You are most welcome. Come back anytime, especially after you return from your mountain hiking. So we'll be anxious to hear what other wisdom you have to drop after that. But I love the way you just talked about you may spend your whole life there. Like, we never know how God is going to use us. And sometimes it's just somebody else being there that gets us over. And they're wondering why they're there. You know, so many people in my own personal journey that I've been like, oh my God, thank God for you. And they may never know that they were the reason I was able to hold on. And so if God is able to use me like that in someone else's life, it doesn't really matter what I go through, because I'm out to bring him glory and to do his will. Because I tried it my way. Doesn't work out so well.
No, it usually doesn't.
So I want to thank you for just opening up and giving your spirit during our interview. I am sure people will be nourished by it and encouraged. And until the next time, God bless you.